All right, well, let's take a look at what did well in Champions League Osaka. All the top 16 lists are here. And honestly, it's an interesting top 16 breakdown. I think from what I saw from Osaka, like talking about doing the watch party last weekend, everyone was teching for Dragapult. Dragapult seemed like it was definitely Dragapult also, and a lot of people were also teching for Gardevoir. It seemed like Dragapult was the big deck, but Gardevoir was also like the most respected deck, I would maybe say. And it did seem like a lot of the best players, it seems like overall, a lot of them chose to play Gardevoir. Like Daichi was playing Gardevoir. It seemed like a lot of really good players chose to play Gardevoir at the tournament. Not a lot of Gardevoir in cut, as you can see. We just had the one. Tacy here has some pretty good, decent accomplishments though. Japan Championships, got second, not this season, but last season. Then just got 14th at Osaka here. But yeah, it seemed like Gardevoir was a pretty scary deck going into the tournament. A lot of people were like prepping for Gardevoir and Dragapult. Dragapult seemed like the biggest deck, but maybe not the best deck. Dragapult seemed like the most popular deck because there's different ways to play it, stuff like that. But then Gardevoir seemed like another deck that a lot of decks are like really prepared for. Because as we look at this first list here, there are Archaludon, double jamming tower. I can't really think of a matchup besides the Gardevoir matchup that you'd want two jamming towers for. And it was a Dialga build. Dialga seemed to be the way to play Archaludon. From all the Archaludons that we saw on stream, most of them had Dialga. We'll take a look at another list here in cut that did not have the Dialga, and it was just like kind of straight Archaludon. But nothing crazy in the build either, though, right? It's just Archaludon, Dialga, 4 Research, 3 Iono, a Palpad. This seems like a pretty straightforward, like this is what people were playing in like the current format before Badoo, before the EV set, but most people were playing Pokestops. It's like the only real big difference. But besides that, this is like what like Archaludon lists kind of look like right now. It's like not too different than a lot of like the Dialga Archaludon list that I was playing most recently was basically no Thornton, no Turo, no jamming towers, like 4 Pokestop, maybe 9 energy instead of 10. Yeah, 3 Vessel, 10 energy. Higher on the energy count, of course, because you are playing Dialga, so you want to be a little bit higher. Like some straight Archaludon lists play like 7 or 8, but you definitely want to be like 9 or 10 range. If you're including the Dialga, you need a little bit higher of an energy count for sure. And is playing those jamming towers because you want that tech card for the Guardy matchup. Your Guardy matchup is pretty terrible if you don't have the jamming towers. And we see like this list specifically basically is completely given up on the Raging Bolt matchup. You just lose to Raging Bolt with this deck. You just do not beat Raging Bolt at all. You just lose to Raging Bolt. And this is also one of the decks, I feel like Archaludon is one of the decks that cares very little about Badoo. You care very little about Badoo. Also, your Duraludon has Hammer in, which does 30 damage. So you just kill Badoo with your Duraludon. It's just in the active. They push up the Badoo. They do 0 damage. You're like, all right, you die. You don't even need the Archaludon turn 2 to kill the Badoo and start the prize trade. You just punch him with your Duraludon. Double Turo in there. Really good against the Dragapult matchup, of course, just healing the big hits that they put on you. Healing that 200 damage. And then if you get to a big Dialga in the Dragapult matchup as well, you just kind of take over the game. They also have the Thornton in here for kind of the Dialga out of nowhere play. You can create a Dialga out of nowhere with the Thornton play. And also get your Pheasantipity off the board, I guess, as well. But you're cooked if they Bravery Charm the Badoo. That is very true. That is very true. So honestly, this Archaludon list is like not too ridiculous, nothing crazy. Just kind of the jamming towers for the Guardy matchup is like the big adaptation I think we see from our current format to the next format here. It's just the jamming towers for the Guardy matchup. Second place list was Ancient Box. As a lot of you know, I'm a huge Ancient Box hater. Not a fan. Never been a fan. I do think Brilliant Blender and Ancient Box is interesting, and I do want to try out Ancient Box with Brilliant Blender. I always like, even if I think a deck is bad, I still like doing my due diligence when I have time to try it out. Honestly, going back and VOD reviewing the finals might be something we should do. Now that we have like full information with both deck lists and stuff like that, that could be an interesting thing to do. But yeah, Ancient Box here. Nothing too crazy. Once again, I mentioned a lot of people were teching for Dragapult. No different here in this Ancient Box list. Has the Monkey Dory for the tech against Dragapult. And the Monkey Dory is pretty good against Dragapult because it kind of like throws the Dragapult player off of the extra prize turn. What Dragapult tries to do in this matchup is they try and go like attack, attack, attack. They go knockout, 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 and then they build up 3 turns of spread, which KOs your Radiant Greninja off your bench. But if you're putting 6 on Radiant Greninja turn after turn after turn, you can bench the Monkey Dory and start to move the 30 off the Radiant Greninja, and then you can make it easier to take one-hit KOs on Dragapult with the Roaring Moon. With the Roaring Moon, you can one-hit KO them. So the Monkey Dory is pretty good tech for the Dragapult matchup. And we even saw this Ancient Box player go up against a Dragapult, and the Dragapult player literally was multiple turns in a row just Gust KO'd the Monkey Dory because it is such a big impact in the matchup overall. Yeah, the Monkey Dory, once again, like I mentioned, tech cards being used for that matchup. The Brilliant Blender is interesting as well in this deck. It makes me want to try out Ancient Box once again to see how it goes. Fort Great Tusk is interesting. There is Fort Great Tusk in here, which is, yeah, I would say that's definitely interesting. Opening Great Tusk isn't terrible in this deck because you can just literally start milling your opponent. And honestly, in the early game, milling your opponent can be more valuable than actually attacking them. Because if you're hitting them for like 100 damage, it might just be better to mill them, and then you're going to be one-hitting them on like the next turn anyways. Yeah, 4 Great Tusk is a lot for sure. But they do have the Petron EX, so they can like move it out of the way more aggressively. But 4 is a lot. You could just play like 2 of those and 2 of the, what is it called? The Suicune, whatever it is. I forget what the Suicune is called. But you could just play 2 of those to have the 1 retreat Pokemon instead. But besides that, nothing too crazy in this Ancient Box build. The Monkey Dory tech, like I mentioned. Well, you could play 2 Walking like 2 Great Tusk instead. Here's the Dragapult list. And I think a lot of these lists are similar, but we'll start with this one. So this is the first deck. The 2 decks in the finals did not play Badoo. So this is the first deck we're seeing with Badoo. And they got 2 Badoo in here. Not only do they have Badoo to slow down the game in the early game, they also are playing a Klefki. And a trend we'll see in these Dragapult lists as we go through them here as well is a lot of them are playing heavy counts of Lance. It is interesting how they are still keeping... when did you stop calling Ancient Box Ancient Pile? I don't think I've ever called it Ancient Pile. I think I've always called it Ancient Box. It is interesting how heavily we still play Arven in these lists, even though we're cutting no Luminion, no Rotom V, no Forest Sealstone. The list that we saw from Regi played Luminion and Forest Sealstone still. We saw them tie the Winnin in the last round of the tournament, so it was a double game loss. On that one, unfortunately. That was a really good game too. The win-in game that we watched, the round 15 of Swiss, was probably the highest level of play that we saw up until that point in the tournament. And unfortunately, it ended in a double game loss because they went to time. And that's how it works in Japan. It goes a double game loss. But yeah, Dragapult Dusknoir seems like the main way that Dragapult's being played over in Japan right now. And it seems to be like Dragapult in general. I would assume this is the most popular way that people play in Dragapult, but Dragapult in general seemed like the most popular deck because everyone was teching for Dragapult. So it seems like Dragapult with Badoo has gained a lot of momentum, steam in the format, and a lot of them are playing the Lance, and who doesn't know what Lance does? It just searches your deck for 3 Dragon Pokemon. So this is like specifically good with Dragapult because it can be good on like up to like the first 3 or even 4 turns of the game, especially when you're slowing down the game with Badoo or potentially the Klefki. You can just sit there, and Lance can be a good card to play for the first like 3 to 4 turns of the game. Turn 1, find Dreepy. Turn 2, find Dracloak. Turn 3, turn 4, find more Dracloaks / Dragapult. So usually cards like this aren't good because they're more limited to like being good on the first turn or second turn of the game. Something like whatever the supporters we have in the format that like find 3 basic Pokemon or 3 evolution Pokemon. Those are like good turn 1 or turn 2, but this is good for many turns throughout the game. So that's why something like Lance is a little bit better than those supporters. And when you're slowing down the game with Badoo, you know, using your supporter for turn just to draw some Dragon Pokemon out of your deck can be fine because you're slowing it down with Badoo. But besides that, still got the Arvens, the Ionos. It is just a Dusknoir Dragapult build. Like I mentioned, there's no V Pokemon in here, which is interesting. It's still really heavy on Arven. Still plays 4 Arven. But we're not trying to abuse Forest Sealstone. It makes sense to not include Rotom anymore, potentially, because we're probably going to be attacking with Badoo more often than not. So including Rotom feels probably a little bit counterintuitive to trying to play around Badoo more heavily. So it does make sense to not include Rotom, to be honest. But like, I feel like Luminion plus 4 Seal Stone, like not playing 4 Seal Stone with 4 Arven just feels so bad, basically, is how I feel about it. But I do understand the reasoning, of course. We just don't play, we're not trying to use Rotom early. Luminion is always like a pretty powerful Pokemon though, so I feel like still including Luminion plus 4 Seal Stone would make some sense for sure. I'd rather go heavier on Evo instead of Lance. Well, the reason you don't is because of Badoo. If you're attacking with Badoo, same thing, like they do still include 1 TM Evo, so I'm sure there's some matchups or situations where you don't care about Badoo as much, but you can't really, you're trying to abuse Badoo. Like, it feels like the reason Dragapult is good now is because you can slow down your opponent with Badoo. That's the reason Dragapult's good. So you can't really afford to use TM Evo because you have to use the Badoo, right? No Crispin? Yeah, I actually didn't see that either. No Crispin actually is interesting. No Crispin, no EXP share. I feel like EXP share would slot in pretty well here. But I guess they're pretty confident behind Badoo. They'll be able to set up 2 Dragapults through just manual attachments. I guess they're pretty confident in just being able to manually attach and set up 2 Dragapults. And maybe in the format currently, like the potential to 1 KO Dragapult is just not super high, so you have that time to set up your Dragapults. Yeah, the lack of Crispin definitely is interesting. I didn't notice that at first. But also, you're not playing Quick Search or you're not playing Luminion, right? So if are you just going to play a 1 of Crispin and hope to draw it? Or should you just play more energy instead of the Crispin, maybe more Earthen Vessels, to just increase your odds of not missing the manual attachments turn to turn? That actually might be more valuable. It's just increasing your energy count or your vessel count or something like that over playing something like a Crispin, because you don't have a way to like find the Crispin. You don't have 4 Seal Stone. You don't have Luminion, you don't have anything like that. So I actually don't hate the idea of no Crispin if we're not playing any of those cards to find the Crispin when we need it. And if we just don't miss our manual attachments, that'll probably make up for the lack of Crispin often enough when we're slowing down the game with Badoo. And if the format just feels a little bit slower in general and we have those times to get those manual attachments down on the Dragapults, then it becomes less relevant. Also, no Stadium Bump in this deck, so Jamming Tower actually is probably pretty effective against like this list of Dragapult specifically, which is like another reason that the Archaludons probably played the Jamming Towers, like we saw on this list here, is it is good against Dragapult to slow them down from the Sparkling Crystal. They can't be quite as aggressive. Also takes away TM Evo, really good against Gardevoir obviously, but also good against this as well. Takes away the TM Evo, takes away the Rescue Board to like get into Badoo more efficiently turn 1, so they can't go like Rescue Board plus attachment for turn. They have to like hard retreat if they want to Badoo. But of course Badoo seems a little bit worse against Archaludon anyway, so. All right, let's take a look at the next list. Is a Lugia. Lugia still, and Lugia seemed like a pretty popular deck over there as well in Japan. And the lists have changed up quite a bit because they have the, although this list, honestly, I said the lists have changed up quite a bit. This literally looks like, this isn't too different. But of course, the big new card is the Regigigas, which definitely is a big new card to the deck. It's got that Jewel Breaker attack for 4 colorless energy. It does 100 plus 230 more damage. If the active is a Terra Pokemon, which that KOs Dragapult, that KOs Charizard, that KOs every other Terra Pokemon that's relevant. It KOs every relevant Terra Pokemon. Like this thing, definitely a big deal for Lugia right now. We see this list still playing around the heavy rat line. And I think Lugia is just going to turn into a deck where it's like, you always play Regigigas, and I think you sometimes play Cinccino. And the sliding scale of 0 Cinccino to a 2-2 Cinccino will just depend on where the meta's at. If stuff like Archaludon's really popular, you probably want a thicker rat line. Or like if Regidrago does still stick around and become stay as a pretty popular deck, which is something you maybe notice is absent from the top 16 here. There's no Regidrago. But I'm not sure if that's going to be a constant moving forward. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's going to be a constant moving forward. We'll see about that. We'll see if this actually maintains. I wouldn't be surprised if Regidrago is better than its results here. Yeah, I think how thick of a rat line will just depend on the meta. It'll just depend on the meta. How popular is stuff like Drago, stuff like Archaludon. Because Archaludon does seem tough for this deck if you don't have the Cinccinos, for sure. You could still play a Weird Ear with like a no Cinccino build, but that's only like a one big one-hit KO. That's maybe not enough to like beat an Archaludon deck. Possibly. Maybe it could get you there. But besides that, nothing too crazy in here. I mean, the counts, there's a lot of one-of counts in this deck. The one of Gigas is whatever, one of Ursaluna, obviously, whatever. It does play the Water Pawn, 1 Thornton, 1 Nest Ball, 1 Great Ball, still has the Squawkabilly, 1 Carmine, 1 Jamming Tower, 1 Mesagoza. And maybe No, I still don't think. I don't know if we ever get to the point where Jamming Tower is actually worth it in Lugia, to be honest. Where's the Pokeball? That's what I'm saying. Where's the one Pokeball? And overall, what do we got? 16 energy? No, wait. 12? No, 16. There's 16. You think Gardevoir will be popular at San Antonio? No. I don't know what you mean by like popular. It'll probably be like a 5%, 6% meta deck. Nothing too crazy. But that's where like, that kind of has been falling recently. Only 3 boss. I hate that, dude. Every time I see 3 boss in a Lugia deck, I'm like, bro, there should be 4 boss here. I could see, although I will say, there is Chinchinos and Regigigas in here. We have a lot of one-hit KO potential. So I can maybe get behind. Only having 3 boss. Maybe. Boss is such a powerful card in Lugia, though. I don't know. Is that a new baby rat? Yeah, that is a new baby rat. It's nothing crazy. It just does 20 damage for a colorless energy. Nothing wild, just 20 damage. Pleasantly surprised by the diversity of A-Spec cards in the top 16. Yeah, there's a decent amount of different legacy. We got what is this one? Scoop Cyclone, Brilliant Blender, the Dragapult A-Spec Sparkling Crystal. Lugia's got the legacy energy, and then Ceruledge. A couple Ceruledge here actually in top 16. Once again, people are teching for the Dragapult matchup. We see the Monkey Dory in here. All right, this list is a little wild. Hold up. Let me take everything in here. There's some stuff going on here. Hold on. Appreciate the 17 months there, Jedi Medic. Appreciate the 29 months there, Spike Owens. So I didn't look at all these lists already. So we have a 3-2 Ceruledge line. That's interesting. We have a 1-2 Palkia V-Star line. Okay, hold up. We're not done. The Radiant Greninja, of course. The Luminian Squawkabilly Sure has a Badoo. Yeah, Badoo's not crazy. The Iron Bundle, not crazy. Monkey Dory, the tech for Dragapult. Everyone was teching for Dragapult at this tournament. The Secret Box. So, dude, Secret Box seems so low value in this deck. I don't know. Secret Box just seems like insanely low value in this deck. Like, it feels like Brilliant Blender is always better. I'm not a big fan of the Secret Box in here. Supporter lineup, I guess, isn't too crazy, to be honest. But yeah, the things that stand out to me, a 3-2 Ceruledge line, and then a 1-2 Palkia line are the big things that stand out to me here. Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that. It just feels weird. And now it could be good, though. It could be good. 18 energy overall, 7 water, 3 jet, the 6 fire, and the 2 dark energy. Heavy ball, you got the Nest Balls, Ultra Balls still, the 1 Pokestop. I guess if you're going to play Secret Box, playing the Irida seems okay. I guess you also Luminian for Irida as well. That doesn't seem like bad. So playing the Irida if you're playing the Palkia doesn't seem terrible. And then does have 3 Nitroture as well. I guess it works, right? Like, you don't need a ton of Ceruledge to close out games. Palkia is maybe going to be... You're using Palkia or Radiant Greninja maybe in the early game. Yeah, you're using Palkia or Radiant Greninja in the early game overall. Like, that's going to be your out as the early game attacker most of the time, or even Badoo to slow things down, and then you go into the Ceruledges from there. It does feel a little thin on the Ceruledge line, but I don't hate it. I'd have to like play with it to see if this feels fine though. It feels a little scary. There's 0 tools in the Secret Box deck. Yeah, that's another thing that feels weird about the Secret Box is like, I don't even know what tool you'd play, to be honest. Like, would you really want to play a TM Evo in here? You don't have the high odds of finding the TM Evo. Like, is TM Evo really better than not just playing like another Vessel or another Energy? Probably not. Yeah, I don't even know what tool card you'd even play in here if you were gonna play one. No Briar is crazy. No Briar is definitely. I didn't even notice that as well. Yeah, No Briar is a little crazy, to be honest. Briar, this deck has felt the deck that abuses Briar the best out of every single deck that I played. So No Briar is definitely a standout here, actually, for sure. Every single deck I played Briar in, Ceruledge has felt like the deck where Briar feels the best by far, not even close. Even better if Briar feels better in Ceruledge than it does in Charizard. So the No Briar is definitely interesting for sure, because it's definitely been a standout card for me whenever I played Ceruledge. It's like, oh, I actually use Briar. This is crazy. Yeah, definitely interesting to see the lack of Briar for sure. All right, that was one of the Ceruledges. There's another Ceruledge to look at here. Miraidon also made it into the top cut, and Akira actually won Champions League Sapporo in May. So pretty good, not back-to-back Champions League performances, but back to almost back. And then actually got top 64 at Worlds. So Akira's definitely been for the major tournaments they've gone to, definitely making some moves. It'd be cool to see it'd be cool to see players like Akira. I don't know if Akira's been to any major tournaments outside of Japan, like has come to any TPCI regionals, but it'd be cool to see more players like this make their way out there. Let some of the best players who are consistently performing in Japan playing more of those tournaments. Like Yoshi's been one of the players that I assume I would see more of coming to the regionals, but haven't seen his name pop up at all at any regionals so far this season. But it'd be cool to see him playing outside of Japan more. I think Akira was the guy who had that crazy finals game where he joined to DT and Boss. Yeah, that was Akira. So this list here, nothing too crazy to be honest. Oh no, it is interesting. It definitely is interesting. So it is a Miraidon build. It is Area 0 Miraidon build, but it's not playing Secret Box, which I'm definitely not a big fan of. And then it's only playing 2 Area 0. So like the chance to actually get Area 0 into play, it just seems so low. It is a research build, not just only Arven, which is what we see a lot of builds kind of be, I guess. Most builds are just like kind of straight up Arven builds. It is a research build. Also, it is playing a Judge, but it's not playing Luminion, which feels a little weird. You could force Sealstone for your Judge or just hope to draw into it in the early game. It could be like an Arven into force Sealstone for Judge next turn type of situation. I guess like you go first or go second. Arven for your force. You get to hold your force for a turn. Then after your opponent's setup turn, you Arven for the force Sealstone for Judge. Maybe, I don't know. 2 Miraidon, 2 Iron Hands, of course. The Raikou, the Raichu. Everything is pretty standard here for the Pokemon lineup. Besides, Zapdos is something we don't see all the time. And then, of course, there's the Minior here, which I have to assume is for the stall matchup. But I'm trying to think if there's any other matchup that this is that good for. I guess against maybe just Badoo in general. Being able to, like, pivot. No. What is this even for besides stall? Is it literally just for stall? It might literally just be for stall. It might literally just be for stall and maybe control. Mirror for the hands. It doesn't want to KO Iron Hands unless you have glasses, though. It doesn't work in the mirror. So isn't that common in Japan, though, is it? It's not terribly uncommon. Yeah. We saw one stall on stream in Japan. Like, yeah. But, yeah, I mean, I don't think it'd be something you'd be, like, scared of. Much against Thorns for putting some damage on. It is decent against Thorns. I guess maybe it's a play for Thorns. Yeah, going with kind of like a, I don't know what you call it, like a hybrid draw support build here with Research and Arven. Like I said, there's the Judge in there as well. Only playing the rescue board besides the Latias for the pivoting. So Water Pond would be a potential struggle here, but does have the Prime Catcher. I don't know how to... only playing 2 Area 0, but Area 0 being so good in this deck without playing Secret Box feels weird. I mean, you are playing a research build, so you are going to see more cards. And you do still have 4 Sealstone, so you could like Arven for 4 Sealstone, 4 Sealstone, 4 Area 0, and that could be a way to get to the Area 0. No Charm. There is no Charm. That is a good shout out there, actually. No Bravery Charm in this build to play around... Well, Brave Charm is like specifically really good against Regigigas. Past that, it's like not too ridiculously powerful. It's like fine. But I have to imagine there's moments against like Dragapult and stuff where having that extra HP makes a difference. Yeah, no, Bravery Charm is definitely interesting for sure. It definitely is like better against... It definitely is like best against Regigigas. That's maybe its best use case. Like moving forward, I expect to see... Miraidon players play switch cart, like going into Birmingham and San Antonio, because you want to be able to switch cart against Regigigas that play vacuum, and you want to pivot cart against like Water Pond in Lugia and stuff like that. So if anyone's planning to play Miraidon for Birmingham or San Antonio, you should be playing a switch cart. I don't know about over the rescue board, but it probably is over rescue board, to be honest. Yeah. Interesting Miraidon build. And there's another one we'll take a look at here in a second. Second Archaludon build here, though. And this one did not play Dialga. So this is basically as straightforward as you can get. 4? Oh my gosh. I didn't realize there was 4. Minior is probably for Water Pond and Lugia. Oh, that could be it, actually. Yeah, the Minior could be for Water Pond and Lugia, actually. It could be for the Water Pond. That makes sense, actually. Yeah, Yeah, 4 Jamming Tower. They really hate Gardevoir. They really... I mean, honestly, if the two biggest decks... And it did feel like the two biggest decks in this tournament were Dragapult and Gardevoir, besides Lugia. Like, I guess the 3 biggest decks felt like... Maybe the 2 most popular decks were Dragapult and Lugia, but Gardevoir felt like a bigger deck in terms of like what people were preparing for. It felt like the 2 decks that people were most prepared for and the biggest plays for the tournament were Dragapult and Gardevoir, and Lugia was probably the 2nd most popular deck behind Dragapult. Jamming Tower is pretty good against Dragapult and Gardevoir. Shut down the TM Evos early, and then shut down the Sparkling Crystal and the Bravery Charms late game. Yeah. So it does kind of make sense, to be honest. It does kind of make sense with the 4 Jamming Tower. But besides that, once again, like we looked at the other Archaludon list, nothing crazy. I mean, the Squawkabilly is like the big standout for me. Lumineon is like, okay. Lumineon's kind of iffy in Archaludon just because you play such a low basic count. Like, you always are going to play Pheasantipity. Although, honestly, I could see playing an Archaludon build that doesn't even play Pheasantipity. Like, you could play Archaludon. Like, this build of Archaludon, I could see you could just playing Archaludon, Iron Bundle, Radiant Greninja, Relicanth, and that's it. Like, I don't even think you need... Pheasantipity, like, has a bigger impact in, like, the Dialga build, for sure. The problem with playing, like, stuff like Squawkabilly and Lumineon is you don't need them that often. You don't need Squawkabilly and Lumineon that often. So you're going to open them... I feel like you're going to open them quite a bit, for sure. Although, yeah, you do have Turos and Scoop Cyclones, so you can get the liabilities out of play, for sure. You can get the liabilities out of play. That is true. That is true. The Squawkabilly seems kind of iffy, though. It's just like, I feel like the amount of times you'll need Squawkabilly is just very low. Like, Archaludon's a pretty low maintenance deck. The amount of times you'll need the Squawkabilly is like, I feel like just like super, super low. Because the deck is so low maintenance overall. I'm not sure I like the Billion here is the big standout for me. Lumineon is like a little bit different, but even then Lumineon feels a little iffy. Because if you're going like Lumineon to go find Turo or something like that, well, then all of a sudden you have a Lumineon in play that is now the same liability level that your Archaludon with damage on it was. So that still feels a little bit iffy. So a lot of 2 prize liabilities in this build. And no Dialga. Is Greninja and Fez enough? Yeah, for sure. Most of the time with Archaludon, Greninja and Fez is more than enough. I mean, that's what we saw on like the first place list, right? It was just literally Pheasantipity and Greninja. And I think a build without Dialga could even get away with even no Pheasantipity, to be honest. Potentially. But Fez is so good, it's hard to like argue against playing Fez, but it's hard to argue against playing Fez. Oh, I guess it's like a standout here from this build as well. There was no Iron Bundle in the first place list, actually, to be honest. Yeah, 4 Jamming Tower. It's a lot of Jamming Tower. They really hate the tool cards, for sure. And then is playing a pretty liability heavy build. But like, yeah, 2 Turo plus a Scoop Cyclone. You do have some liability management with that for sure. And then pretty straightforward besides that. Second Lugia build here. There was 3 Lugias in cut. Take a look at this one. This one is the no Chinchino build. Which is like, it's cool that you can play Lugia this way again with just basic attackers. It's been a while since you could do this. You kind of had to rely on Chinchino quite a bit. I guess it was actually only back in the single strike days that you could play it like this. People did usually play the single strike Urshifu as well, but where's the Weird Ear at? That's definitely a good question, to be honest. I'm surprised there is no Weird Ear in here. That's a good question. I'm surprised there is no Weird Ear. But if all the big things you have to one-hit KO, Regigigas can one-hit KO for you, I guess that kind of works. Noivern strives versus this. No, Noivern just dies to Lugia V-Star. Noivern doesn't do anything against this build. Yeah, if Regigigas one-hit KOs all the big Pokemon, then I guess I can understand the lack of Weird Ear. But although it does seem like Weird Ear would be good against Archaludon specifically, right? Like, having a way to one-hit KO at least one Archaludon throughout the game does still seem pretty decent. So I wouldn't hate to see a Weird Ear in the deck, to be honest. But obviously, you're heavily relying on the new Regigigas. Is rocking double Iron Hands, double basic Lightning. I guess that is actually one thing cool about Iron Hands against Archaludon. Iron Hands doesn't actually get one-hit KO'd by Archaludon, which is actually kind of nice. So if you can line up if you go for a Tempest Dive and then don't Turo it, then you can get up there and you can amp for 3, and then the Hands lives for another turn, and then you could like Arm Press a Duraludon off the bench or something, or just amp the active again, or even amp their Greninja for another 2. Ooh, that is the Hands can go a long way in that matchup for sure, actually. You just need some amps to line up, to be honest. You just need some amps to line up. But if you get that to line up, you're in a pretty good spot. If you get the amps to line up against the Duraludon. Yeah, heavy on the amp, which is good against Gardevoir, of course. You have the water pawning here as well. And then the Drapion, which I'm sure some of you are questioning why there's a Drapion in here. They have Relicanth to one-shot you if you punch with Lugia. Oh, that's true. So what does your Lugia punch have to look like? Can you actually line up the math? Because Lugia hits for... So you have to double. If you double turbo your Lugia, you can hit for 180. Okay, so that would have to be the math, right? Against Archaludon, you have to double turbo. You have to double turbo to stay out of range. I don't really understand Drapion. If it's there for guarding me, you win anyways. You need to be able to one-shot Gardevoir. Yeah, so the Drapion's here to one-hit KO Gardevoir for anyone who's curious. Because this deck doesn't have a way to one-hit KO Gardevoir. And even if you played Weirdeer is like a pretty inefficient attacker to one-hit KO a Gardevoir. You have to commit so much energy to it. And if you're trying to use like Iron Hands in the early game and stuff like that, you don't really have the ability to do that. And the reason that that's important to be able to do is because kind of the way the prize trade lines up against Gardevoir is if you get the hands early, they're just going to go Gardevoir Iono or Unfair Stamp Countercatcher KO and a Archeops and ignore your Iron Hands, which means they don't proc your gift energy and they take away your energy acceleration. But a Drapion through a Nest Ball or an Ultra Ball or a Tails on Capture Aroma or a Heads on Mezagoza. There is 3 Mezagoza in this build. All of a sudden becomes Drapion, and then 2 double turbos to Drapion. As long as the Gardevoir has 10 damage on it, 1-hit KOs the Gardevoir. So you have more outs to get a 2-prize turn against Gardevoir, besides just Iron Hands. So instead of having a boss for turn to combo with your Iron Hands, instead of needing a boss to combo with Iron Hands for turn to get a 2-prize knockout, you can just get Drapion one-shot. But why not just make Drapion a Weirdeer? Because the energy commitment is just so high, you could just like lose the game by running out of energy. You have to put so many energy on Weirdeer to get a 1-hit KO. That you could just lose the game on the next turn by them just going, all right, return KO, and then you're just like, well, I'm out of energy, and I just lose. There's no Rod in Lugia decks standard. Yeah, Lugia rarely plays recovery. If Lugia plays any recovery, it's usually just like a Thornton. Yeah, no Chinchinos. You're relying on the 1-hit KO potential of Regigigas, the favorable prize trades from the Iron Hands. Specifically for Gardevoir, you got the Drapion, and then you can also cheese some Dragapult decks with the Water Pawn with the Torrential Pump. Slash a potential Sob play, specifically against Miraidon, is when the Sob play becomes good. And honestly, that might be that actually maybe is the main reason for, someone mentioned it in chat, the Minior and the Miraidon deck. The main reason for this actually might just be to deal with Sobs against Lugia instead of playing like a switch card. I feel like the switch card would be better, but I guess you also beat Stall by having the Minior as well, right? I guess that also gives you the Stall matchup, which is like kind of cool, I guess. All right, the next deck, dude, don't ask me. I don't know, all right? I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know if it's Dragapult Gholdengo. I don't want it. Don't ask me, though. Don't ask me. I don't know. So already seems like a lot for just Terra Pokemon, unless it's just... unless I'm just underestimating how many Terras there are in the next rotation. The Terras are to bench, or the double Regigigas is probably to be able to bench double Regigigas at the same time. If you play Regigigas and Chinchino, you can bench a Gigas and a Chinchino. But if you don't bench Regigigas, they can KO your Archeops, which means it's hard for you to get into a Regigigas. And if you bench one Regigigas and only play one Regigigas, then they can KO that before you get to use it. But if you can bench double Regigigas and put energy on both in the same turn, your opponent can't deal with both at the same time, and they will get hit by one of them. So that's why you play. That's why double Regigigas is good if you don't play Chinchinos. Or like playing a Thornton or something. Because if you don't bench any Regigigas, then you have no Regigigas to play with energy. So if they KO one of your Archeops, then it can be awkward to get into a Regigigas without just running out of energy turn to turn. And if you bench a Regigigas ahead of time to build up on it before they put their Terra Pokemon in the active, then they can KO your Regigigas before you get to use it. So that's why you play 2 Regigigas, or you play Rats plus Regigigas, because you could bench like Minchino plus Gigas in the same turn, and now they have to respect. They can't deal with everything. That's why you need like a higher count of threats. Especially with the lack of Weirdeer. Because that's why Weirdeer is so good, because it's a threat that comes out of nowhere. Because that means you could, if you only find one Minchino and you don't get double Minchino down, you could go bench Minchino, put some energy on Minchino, put some energy somewhere else. Your opponent KOs Minchino, and then you go bench Weirdeer, jet up Weirdeer. You bring all the energy that you put everywhere else together, and then Weirdeer becomes a threat out of nowhere. But Regigigas can't be that unless you have double Archeops. It can't be a threat out of nowhere. But if you don't have Regigigas established, they could just go KO your Pokemon, right? Which is 26 months there, chance. Okay, so this is Dragapult Gholdengo. Like I said, I don't know. I don't know about this one. It's a deck, technically, because we're looking at it right here, right now. I got nothing. I got nothing to be honest. It's like Dragapult Iron Thorns, 4 Arven, TM Evo, 4 Crispin. It's not doing the trolley thing. It has 4 Buddy Poffin. Doesn't have Thorns. You're rocking Badoo and Klefki to slow down your opponent in the early game. You have the potential to take big one hits with Gholdengo. They have superior energy retrieval in here, and they are playing 11 energy, so you can go for big one hit KOs with Gholdengo once, maybe twice throughout the game, at least once. There's also the Lana's Aid in here, and we saw a lot of Gholdengos. There's no Gholdengos in top cut here. A lot of Gholdengo decks were playing Lana's Aid, and the reason you have to play Lana's Aid is actually to deal with Badoo, because when you go for your first big one hit KO on like a Dragapult as Gholdengo, the Dragapult player could just go, okay, I'm going to go into Badoo now, and now you lose the game, because you can't recover energy with your superiors, and I can just beat you with Badoo. So that's basically what can happen against Gholdengo. Gholdengo actually just seems like a terrible deck, because you have to like play stuff like Lana's Aid to not just lose to Badoo, because Badoo would actually just run you over solo. Like, Badoo would solo you if you don't play something like Lana's Aid. Because you have to go for the, like, if I promote a Dragapult and you're playing Gholdengo, you have to one-hit KO it. So you have to expend 8 energy to do that, and then I can go bench Badoo, boss up your other Gholdengo, item lock, and then you go, okay, attach metal, use another energy, and then I go, all right, recover Badoo, item lock, bring up your other thing, and then you just lose the game, right? So you have to kind of play something like Lana's Aid, a non-item energy recovery to actually have a chance. That might be like a similar thought process here, to play the Lana's Aid to deal with potential Badoo, so you can use your Gholdengo to still KO Badoos after that. I don't actually know, but I would assume that would be the case. I assume that'd be the case here. And that's what we saw a lot of other Gholdengo players playing as well. They were playing the Lana's Aid. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have any thoughts on this one, to be honest, overall. It's a deck, that's for sure. We'll go on to the next Ceruledge here. Ceruledge Palkia. Honestly, it's a decent amount different than the other one. It has the Monkey Dory still teching for the Dragapult like every other deck in the format. 3-3 Ceruledge this time. So one more Ceruledge, 1-1 Palkia, Greninja, Lumineon, Squawkabilly, Fez. Supporter lineup is similar. No Irida. Oh, 3 Carmine. Actually, no, this is way heavier on the Carmine. 3 Carmine, 3 Research. Boss does have the Briar. And we did see that actually be... Was it a difference in their game? I want to say it was their game. Maybe not. Is maybe they're winning into top cut against... We maybe saw them play in the winning in. I'm not sure. And then a little bit of a split on the stadium counts here. Jamming Towers once again making its way even into this deck alongside the Archaludon decks, trying to shut down the Sparkling Crystals, the TM Evos, of the Gardevoirs, of the Dragapults. Still has 1 Pokestop in here as well, though. But yeah, Jamming Tower is pretty popular as well. This is the 3rd Lugia build here. And this one is like the full split, actually. They got the 1-1 Minccino, 1-1 Cinccino, Regigigas, and the Weirder. So this list did play the Weirder. They also have the Drapion. No Water Pawn in this build. I think did the other 2 lists play the Water Pawn? They did, yeah. We had Water Pawn in the other 2 lists. This list, no Water Pawn. Does have a pretty wide range of attackers, though, but no Water Pawn. The Deer, the Cinccino, the Gigas, Hands. Played a Night Stretcher and a Thornton, which is interesting. That's like a lot of recovery. Still playing 16 energy. I feel like there's some energy that's missing here. Am I like trolling? What energy? Oh, no V-Guard. No one's playing V-Guard anymore. That's what it is. Because no one's playing Drago, so there's no reason to play V-Guard. And it is like Squawkabilly, 2 Nest Ball. That's become pretty standard. 4 Boss, love to see that. Is rocking the Carmine instead of the 4 Research. Only 1 Mezzagoza. 4 Research is infinitely better than 1 Carmine and Lugia. I don't know about that. Those early turns are important. Those early turns are pretty important. Not sure I agree. Makes sense that they still want 2 Regigigas for Dragapult. I know, but playing a Stretcher and a Thornton, I feel like a Thornton would just be enough. But yeah, rocking the double recovery there. I don't know. Night Stretcher just feels so mid. Thornton feels like if you're going to play a recovery card, I feel like Thornton is like the one to go with because you can make use of energy on board. But And I just feel so extremely mid in Lugia. It's like so hard to find too. You can't find the card. It exists in your deck technically, but will you ever draw into it? Who knows? That's why you play stuff like 4 bosses orders, because drawing bosses is really good, but you don't like have like, I mean, you have Luminions as well, but you don't have like quick search on board or something to work with. You know. All right, second Miraidon build or second Miraidon, 2 Miraidons and cut. Let's take a look at it. And this one is like a little bit more what we've come to expect, I feel like, in our current format. Like, this is actually just like... This is almost like, feels like the exact 60 from from Sacramento, that one. It's pretty close to it. It's not too far off. Yeah, pretty close, pretty close. Arven's, bosses, got the counter catcher in here. Only 14 lightning. That feels a little low. But they are going with double 4 Sealstone to try and be consistent around that. Double Squawkabilly as well. So they're leaning very heavily into turn 1 Squawkabilly. So I don't hate that. I don't hate like them leaning really heavily towards like the consistency side of things, I guess. Double 4 Sealstone, double Squawkabilly, stuff like that. And then got the Bravery Charm for a little bit of that extra health. Although, like I said, Switch Card feels like the better of the two right now, but you could play both. I guess at least in our format, I guess, because it's different in maybe their format. Arda seems really good in Badoo format. It barely cares about items. If they're wasting turns attacking with Badoo, you don't need generators. Well, I mean, just it depends how your turn 1 goes going first, though, right, Snoopy? Because like if you go second against a Badoo deck and they Badoo lock you before you get to like Secret Box or something, like, I don't know, it's kind of scary, to be honest. Like even if they just take away like a true prize knockout from you, like if you have to like struggle to get to like a Raikou to KO a Badoo, I don't know, that feels pretty bad, right? Yeah, that feels pretty bad. Because you're not going to get to Iron Hands at Badoo if you go first, probably. Most likely you will not get there. Both Rhinos only play 2 Area Zeros. Yeah, Area Zero, 2 Area Zero is pretty staple in the Secret Box build because you can just find it instantly through Arven Secret Box and then find Area Zero. In the non-Secret Box build, usually there's a little bit of a higher count. It usually feels like 3 or 4 is better. But honestly, in the if you're not playing Secret Box, I feel like playing Area Zero is probably just like not correct, to be honest. But it's such a powerful card in the deck, it makes me feel like you should be playing Area Zero. But if you're playing Area Zero, you should be playing Secret Box. Is how I feel about it. But yeah, nothing too crazy in this build. And then 2 more Dragapult Dusknoirs here, and they're not too different. So this is the Luminion, Luminion Force Seals one. And like I said, we saw Regi lose the win or tie the win and in. And I think it was actually maybe playing the same 60 here as Haru. It's pretty close because Regi was playing Crispin, the Luminion, the 4 Sealstone. I think was playing 2 Rescue Board, 3 Lance. Holy, does have 3 Lance in here, and that's to have like more things to be able to do under that item lock of the Badoo, right? Has 3 Lance in here, only 2 Rare Candy, also no TM Evo. So this is pretty committed to just using Badoo. Dude, that feels so weird. You have 4 Arven in this deck. There's 4 Arven, but you don't play Rotom, so you don't even like want to use 4 Sealstone. You only use it when you put Luminion in play. And then you're basically searching out, I guess you have Rescue Board. You have Rescue Board and Sparkling Crystal. I mean, I guess you have a ton of supporters in this deck, though, so like you get the turn 1 Arven to get you going, and then from there you're looking for like a Lance, or maybe just an Iono to just get a heavy draw up. But yeah, playing 4 Arven here and being like so uncommitted to tool cards is kind of funny. But I guess it really is just like for that turn 1. Or, you know, just to find that Vessel or Countercatcher or Candy later in the game, I guess. But this actually might be the exact same 60 that we saw on the win and in. Because Luminion, the 4 Sealstone. I think Regi was playing 2 Rescue Board, though, if I remember correctly. So that's like the only thing that stands out here that might be different. But I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, Badoo, Dragapult, Dusknoir seems like the way to play Dragapult right now. Besides Dragapult, Gholdengo, of course. Another Guardy build here, and this Guardy build was crazy. It's a Call Bell build, but they went further. We've seen the Call Bells up to this point. We've seen them. This list went further though, There's 4 Call Bell and 2 Pokegear. The need, the want. Call Bell Guardy just seems so bad, though, because I feel like everyone is choosing second in this format. I feel like this is a choose second format. Not everyone, I guess, but like if you look at this like top cut here, what's going second? Well, I guess, okay, maybe it's a little bit. Archaludon, Dialga. Honestly, you're probably choosing first. Dragapult, Dusknoir, you're choosing second. Ancient Box is probably choosing second because you don't want to get Badooed. You want like a turn to like play stuff. Lugia is choosing first, I guess. Ceruledge is probably also choosing first. Miraidon's choosing second, like blind. Archaludon's choosing first. Lugia's choosing first. Dialga, Gholdengo, I don't know. Ceruledge is choosing first. Lugia is choosing first. Miraidon's choosing second. But Lugia's would choose second against Miraidon or Dragapult, I'm sure. Well, no. Against Dragapult, you would want to go first. Guardy, you're choosing second. Okay, maybe it's a little bit more. If picking second is good, then that makes Call Bell better. Well, no, it makes it worse because you're gonna go second less often blind. It's gonna make it Call Bell worse because when you lose the coin flip, your opponent's not gonna choose first. They're gonna choose second, right? But they would choose second if they knew you were playing Call Bell Guardy. Well, actually, no, yeah, that does make sense, right? Like, decks that want to go second are best when they want to go second no matter what they're up against in a format where most decks blind want to go first, right? But if a lot of decks blind want to go second, but I guess there's not that many decks that blind want to go second, to be honest. That is fair, actually, I guess, if we look at this. But yeah, it just depends on how many decks blind want to go second, though, right? That's what it comes down to. If your opponent picks second most of the time, Call Bell is 50% useless. Yeah, exactly. That's like what I'm getting at. But I guess like not that many decks. I guess maybe it is a little bit closer to 50-50 of decks that want to go first and second. I think you're going to win the coin flip 50% of the time, right? Do most decks want to go second? Well, I mean, we just looked at the top 16 here, and that's not true. Like all the Archaludon and Lugia wants to go first. Dragapults want to go second, I assume. Miraidon wants to go second. Guardy wants to go second. Yeah, definitely an interesting Guardy build. Call Bells, Pokegears, Trolley. And we saw them play on stream on the winning in or close to winning in against a Archaludon. And they played it really well. They played it really interestingly. There's also actually another thing that I'll mention about Guardy lists that we saw pretty consistently. Once again, they're teching for Dragapult. Most of the Guardy lists we saw had Cresselia. I don't think all of them had Cresselia. I think there was 1 or 2 of them that didn't play Cresselia, but most. We saw a lot of Guardy on stream throughout the tournament. A lot of them had Cresselia, and only 1 counter catcher as well. The Gust Effect count has gone down in Gardevoir. Most people were playing 1 counter catcher, 1 boss, from what I saw. So a lot of time when I was like thinking about gameplay, I was always assuming that most people had 2 counter catcher, but I think most people played 1 counter catcher in their Guardy decks for sure. Isn't Guardy better with Badoo? I don't know. That's actually another thing to mention here. Most of the Guardy lists we saw also had Badoo, but this build's a little bit different. This build is playing really heavily for turn 1 Arven TM Evo. So Badoo does seem worse in this build, in this deck for sure. Badoo definitely seems worse. Like you're just choosing second, Arven, Trolley, Evo, Curlius, go. Right? Like that's what you're playing for with this build specifically. This build's different. It's like it makes sense that they don't have Badoo, to be honest. Yeah, it makes sense that you don't have Badoo in this build specifically. But every other Guardy, no, we only saw 1 person playing this kind of Guardy build. Every other Guardy build was a Badoo, a slower like Badoo style build. 2 Iona seems so little. Well, you're trying to be more aggressive with this build. Like you do want some comeback potential, but you're trying to like kind of more match your opponent in the tempo with this build of Gardevoir. You're trying to have like a really aggressive turn 1 setup with the whole 4 Call Bell for Arven combo, and then go from there. You're not trying to be as slow as most other Guardy decks are. All right, another Dragapult Dusknoir. Let's see how much different it is. I guess one thing to mention about these 2 there's 2 Badoo in these 2 Dragapult Dusknoir builds, so they're prepared. They really don't want to prize Badoo. That's one thing. They're trying to Badoo like every single game. We don't see a heavy ball in either of these lists. They're not trying to heavy ball for Badoo. And then also potentially back-to-back Badoos I could also see being a thing. Just slow the game down for as long as you possibly can while you set up your Dragapults. But here's another Dragapult build. And this one is closer to the second build, I guess. 2 Lance, not 3 Lance. Has Lumini in the 4 Sealstone alongside the Arvins, but still no Rotom, of course. No one's rocking Rotom anymore. Has a TM Evo as well. Only 1 Badoo. Only 1 Badoo. Still has a Crispin, though. Temple of Sinnoh over the Artisan. Actually, did we even see a Stadium from this build? No Stadium, no Vacuum. And this build had 2 Artisan to help deal with the jamming towers. Then this build here played a Temple of Sinnoh, which is good for the Gardevoir, or the Lugia matchup, of course. Good for the Lugia matchup, of course. I'd rather have 4 gears than 4 bells. That's definitely an interesting choice. Yeah, you could do 2 bell, 4 gear. I wonder what the math ends up being on that. What is your turn 1 chance to see an Arvin if you play 4 bell, 2 gear, or 4 gear, 2 bell? Because the gears are higher value as the game progresses. The bells fall off as the game progresses, and the gears are become higher value. That's an interesting question. But yeah, nothing too crazy with this build either. Now that we've kind of looked at a couple builds, it's like, all right, everyone's playing Lance, Badoo, Dusknoir, Dragapult. The way everyone's playing it. They have Manaphy. This list has Manaphy. I think it's the only list that had the Manaphy. I'm pretty sure. Go back and look at these, yeah. The only real snipe Pokemon that seems super prevalent in the format was the Water Pond from Lugia. Oh, I guess the Ceruledges. The Ceruledges with their Radiant Greninja. Manaphy seems probably worth it. Manaphy seems probably worth it overall. And then, rounding out top 16, it's still alive and kicking. Charizard, Pidgeot. Charizard always finds a way to survive. And this is like, this list is heavily adapted, it feels like, for the Badoo meta. You might notice that there is a lot of stage 1s in here. Pidgeotos, 2 of them. Charmeleons, 2 of them. Dusclops, 1 of them. And we have the Grand Tree in here. Grand Tree, for anyone who doesn't know, allows you to evolve a basic to a stage 1 and then a stage 1 to a stage 2 in a single turn. But it can't be a Pokemon that was just put into play. Is Gardevoir still viable, or does Badoo just do it better? My assumption would be that Badoo probably pushes the possibility of item lock for other decks out of the format. Because if every deck's an item lock deck, then playing an item lock deck loses value. I honestly don't see the meta being bad for Zard, or... I mean, Dragapult's pretty tough for Zard, so it's probably not great. So what do you think of the early news of the hop deck that people are talking about? I think the cards that now exist that we didn't know existed before, but now we know they exist. It's nice to see Zard so down the list, though. It is still on the list, though. You might have noticed there's no Regigigas in Top Cut. Zard still made the list. But, yeah, very heavy stage 1 build. Honestly, what I'm actually surprised at here kind of is there's no TM Evo. But TM Evo is a little bit awkward in Charizard because you play such a low energy count. So I don't, like, it's not like crazy. No Night Stretcher as well, which I feel like has kind of become like a staple in Charizard decks, was Night Stretcher. But I guess with how thick of lines of Pokemon you play, there's like 3 Charizard in here compared to like the 2. You are like playing these like thicker lines of Pokemon, I guess. So maybe that's the reasoning for like the lack of Night Stretcher. It's just more Pokemon. You have to like cut something to be able to play 2 Pidgeotto, right? You have to be playing something to play 2 Pidgeotto, right? You can't just be playing 2 Pidgeotto out here and not cut something. So, but there's no Badoo in this build either. There's no Badoo. Still going heavily towards the Rotom line. And I mean, getting the Badoo in the active on the turn 1 would be awkward anyways, right? Although, to be honest, Trolley Zard, turn 1, you trolley for Cleffa or Badoo. You cut all of the V Pokemon. You either get Cleffa or Badoo turn 1, and then you go into one of those to set up from there. Just thinking. No Defiance Band is another one. That's actually a good shout. Yeah, No Defiance Band is a little weird, to be honest. No Defiance Band is definitely weird. Yeah, it's actually a pretty big standout. And I think actually when we were I think we watched one of their games. Yeah, wasn't it? Excuse me. Wasn't it Charizard versus Ceruledge and Cut or something? I think it was maybe Charizard versus Ceruledge in Top Cut. I don't know. I think we saw them play, and we were talking as if they played Defiance Band, but it never came around. But yeah, they actually just don't play Defiance Band. But I'm pretty sure we saw their match, one of their matches, get played out. Yeah, the lack of Defiance Band is definitely a little crazy. That card is like always feels really, really powerful in Charizard for all kinds of play. I assume it loses like a little value though if Drago is kind of pushed out of the meta, because one of the lines that you could take with your Defiance Band was Radzard Defiance Band was like a pretty cool play, but I guess that's no longer a possibility because Drago's just like not a relevant deck, and I don't know what that is. It could be a mix of a couple things for Drago not being very prevalent. The main one is probably Badoo, though. Badoo is probably just pretty impactful against Drago. But I do think Archaludon is decent against Drago. Ceruledge is decent against Drago. Those might be two other reasons as well, if those decks are like more prevalent overall. Whereas Cloth? We did see a decent amount of Cloth on stream. Saw some Badoo Cloth pop up. Honestly, Badoo Cloth with Mochi seems a little scary. Like, good. We'll see if we see more of it in the future, though. It didn't do very well. The Cloth Terapagos we saw on stream was pretty lackluster, the gameplay we saw. But it did pop up on stream. We did see it on stream a little bit, for sure. It did make an appearance. But yeah, those are all the lists from the Champions League Osaka. I wish we could see more lists, to be honest. I wish they would publish all the other lists somewhere. Do they do that somewhere, actually? Do they publish more lists besides the top 16? But those are the top 16 lists.